Module 9, coping with feelings without using food. Now, I'm sure these modules that we're going to be working on over the next few weeks are going to be of interest. So, this is Module 9, and for the last 8 modules, we've very much been exploring dieting mentality. With the years of both personal and professional experience, I've come to the point to really recognise that there's 2 key strains that we need to focus on when we're looking at finding a healthier relationship with food and body and all of that stuff. So you have the impact of dieting mentality and how that has encouraged us to not only not recognise our physical hunger and our physical fullness cues, but has really invited us to have a really distorted view of what food is really about in terms of the labels that we apply to food in terms of good and bad. And over the last 8 modules, we've kind of been working on the different elements of dieting mentality and giving you some tools and techniques to help you work on rejecting and letting go of those harsh rules, dieting rules, but also encouraging you to start to honour your hunger cues and also start to recognise your fullness cues. And as with any of this work, you're not going to get it after one go. It's something that you've got to be continually practicing. And of course, with that practice comes frustration and us forgetting to practice and all of that usual stuff that we go through when we're learning new skills. So the last 8 modules have been very much around looking at the dieting mentality stuff. And now what I want us to do is I want us to start exploring the other side. So dieting mentality and rejecting dieting mentality is one side of us beginning to heal our food relationship, but the other side is also the emotional eating stuff. So not all of our eating is emotion led. A lot of it's habit, and a lot of it is tied into the disordered relationship that's developed because of our dieting mentality. So when you start to work on sorting some of your dieting mentality and dieting culture stuff out, then your eating patterns are naturally going to start to become a lot more aligned to recognising physical hunger, recognising your fullness cues, eating for satisfaction. All of those things are really, really important parts of us starting to feel more in control around our food. So over the next few modules, we're going to start exploring emotional eating. And you know what? Anxiety, loneliness, anger, frustration, all of these different emotions that we experience, food is never really going to be the answer for any of that stuff. Reaching for food is only ever a short-term solution. And, we all know this, don't we? And when I talk about emotional eating, it's not just the actual eating of food. It's food in general in terms of how we use food to either comfort ourselves by the eating of it, but we also use food to we restrict food in order to comfort certain feelings. And what I mean by that is if we are feeling stressed because our clothes don't fit us, and that generates a feeling of anger or frustration or sadness, the restricting of food is another way in which we are able to push down or suffocate those feelings that we're experiencing as a result of our clothes not fitting. So when I talk about food for comfort, it can either be the eating of food, but also the restriction of food. So it's important to bear that in mind as we're going through this module, because you could relate to it in either camp. So just checking my notes. So I've written here, overeating and restriction can be used as a way of avoiding emotions. So this module this week is going to give you the opportunity to start looking at emotional eating, and then we're going to move into some techniques for helping you with your emotional eating in module 11. So in this module, I'm going to invite you to work on distinguishing between emotional eating and non-attuned eating. So they are the 2 kind of sides of the camp I was talking about. The non-attuned eating is the stuff that encourages us to ignore our hunger cues, ignore our fullness cues, all the stuff that we've worked on in the last 8 modules. So in this module, you're going to have the opportunity to distinguish between what is non-attuned eating and what is true comfort and emotional eating, and it's really helpful. And I'm also going to touch on something called stealth deprivation, and this is where we're going to just start to have a look at how resistant you are to the sorry, my brain's not working today, the non-attuned eating stuff. So there's likely to still be some resistance for you all around letting go of dieting mentality and dieting culture, and stealth deprivation is linked into that. So I want us to take a little bit of time to just explore what is I can't remember this bloody word. Non-attuned eating. What is non-attuned eating and what is emotional eating? So that's the first thing we're going to be exploring. The second thing you've got to explore in this module is to evaluate the pros and cons of emotional eating, because emotional eating serves us, and it's really important to understand how your emotional eating is serving you, because once we understand how the act of emotional eating is serving us, that's when we can start to kind of look at other ways of being able to meet that need that the food is currently serving. So we're going to have a little look at that in this module. And then the last thing we're going to look at in this module is around feelings. So you're going to have an opportunity to identify what you're feeling, okay, and what you really need in these times when you turn to food. So the last part of this module is about, first of all, helping you to identify your feelings, and that in itself can be quite challenging. Many of us from a very, very early age have learned to stuff down our feelings, to avoid them, to disassociate from them. So part of the work in overcoming our tendency to emotionally to stuff down our feelings, or to restrict to stuff down our feelings, is to actually start to have a bigger emotional connection and language that we use. And this is where we're going to start to actually help you to understand what you're feeling and what the eating is actually doing at that moment in time, and how we can start to replace the feeling with an alternative way of processing that feeling. So that's this week's module. So it's very much looking at the difference between non-attuned eating and emotional eating. We're then going to look at the pros and cons of emotional eating. Important to see how our patterns of eating are actually serving us, so we can start to look for other ways of serving us. And then the final bit is around identifying your feelings and then looking for alternative ways of meeting those feelings, okay? And then next week we're going to start exploring techniques for moving away from emotional eating. So as always, this could bring up some stuff for you guys. It's interesting, we've got a lot of emotional stuff going on at the moment, and I'm curious about how that might be influencing your eating. So it might be a really nice opportunity this week to start looking at this stuff. So any questions, please come and ask me. As always, please come and pop your comments below this video so we can sort of engage and talk things through with what's coming up for us. So enjoy.